read 8 books in the month of March. Let's rapid fire talk about them. I of course started rereading Throne of Glass. I started rereading this before Sarah J Maas announced that she was coming out with ACOTAR 6 and 7. I ended up giving it 4 stars. That's the same rating that I gave it the first time I read it. I love the intricacies that happens in this whole entire series and then the things that are foreshadowed in here, and I'm liking reading this with a new pair of eyes. Next book I picked up was a historical fiction by Kristen Hanna, The Nightingale. This follows 2 sisters named Isabel and Vianne, and we see first-hand accounts from their view of the different things that they witnessed during war-torn France. I loved how immersive it was, and also it made me sob at the end of this book, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. The next book I picked up was Misborn by Brandon Sanderson. This follows 2 characters named Vin and Kelsier. They're both Misborns. They want to basically overthrow the Lord Ruler. He's been ruling for 1,000 years and he's basically immortal. I love how Vin comes into her own and the character development she has. I always thought it would be hard for me to get into the Brandon Sanderson universe, but Misborn was the best one to start off with, and I gave this book a 5 stars, and I cannot wait to continue on with the rest of the series and the rest of the Cosmere world. And then the next book I picked up was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This follows 2 characters named Nora and Charlie. Nora is a literary agent and Charlie is an editor in New York. I love that she didn't have to give up any of herself in order to be happy, in order to fall in love either. And I love her and Charlie's relationship, how they were equals, and I absolutely gave this a 5 stars. And then I also picked up We Who Will Die by Stasia Stark. We basically follow a character named Arvel, and so she gets a proposition from this vampire who tells her that if she goes and competes in these trials and ends up unaliving the Emperor, then in turn the vampire will heal her younger brother. I honestly think it's a little bit overhyped. It was too fast paced to the point where it was kind of ignoring character development, to be honest. So I ended up giving this a 2 stars, and I did not enjoy my time with this. And then the next book I picked up was Serpent of the Wolf, Rebecca Robinson. I think this was her romantic debut. This book was okay. I ended up giving it a 3 stars. It was just filled with a bunch of tropes left and right. Like the first 25%, it was literally a check mark of every single popular romantic trope that there is. I don't think it was like bad whatsoever. I just didn't like it. And I think I'm slowly losing my love for fantasy romances because they're all starting to be very similar. And then the second to last book that I picked up was The Wedding People by Alison Espash. We follow a character named Phoebe who unfortunately goes over to the Cornwall Hotel to unalive herself, but she ends up finding out that there's a sort of like a wedding happening in this hotel while she's there, and then the bride ends up telling her that she can't unalive herself because it will ruin her wedding. I found this was written so hilarious. There's so many funny things happening in this book. I thought the character development for Phoebe was great, and I loved how it ended, and I gave this a 4.5 stars. And the last book I picked up was City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. I found that this was my favorite out of the first 3. I gave it a 4.5 stars. The first quarter of the book was kind of like slow to get into because it was just a bunch of like bickering between Jace and Clary. Yes, I absolutely loved my time with this.